Hello everyone and welcome to episode 3 of the Latte Lounge, ETN's informal little discussion, chatting really about what we feel is of interest to us, but at the moment it's health and wellness, and this is our own personal experiences. So we may expand out to the animal kingdom with Pat on board at the moment, we certainly may, but at the moment we are at number 3 session, and I would like to share with you, we've been talking about homeopathy and one or two other things that have helped people, myself included, become clear of certain conditions, and that has been a great relief. So I had an email or two from Chris Jacobs, who's a homeopath, practicing homeopath who runs courses, and he said it was just great. I want you to hear what he had to say, so I'm just going to read his little testimony there. He said it was great to see you discussing the toxicity of mercury, and unusual these days to find such interesting debate about the alternatives, including homeopathy for healthcare and detoxification. Do keep up the good work. It's Jacob. So thanks for that, Chris. And I think I was mentioning to you before, Pat, that another comment had come in about Penny Arnold's lovely salty salve, which was a combination of coconut oil and Himalayan salt. And the reason it was the Himalayan salt as opposed to any other was because it had so many minerals in, which is fantastic for us. But then what I didn't know that this listener had praised me of was that it's actually poisonous for cats. So you have a little bit of knowledge about that. So maybe you could just share what you know on that in that regard.
Yes, I actually didn't realise that, like yourself, until about a couple of years ago. And in fact, it was not long after we'd been to that lovely shop in Bexhill that sells all the Himalayan crystal lamps and things and rock. And I think I bought at another place a very small piece of that and brought it home and was quite excited to light it, because it's so pretty. And somebody made me stop, and I thought, I'm just going to check this is okay, because my cats are in my room a lot. I thought, I just need to check. So I checked online, and apparently they're very, very drawn to it, and they will actually, if they can get to it, if you've got it on a surface at that level, or whether they can jump up, they can, if they're drawn to it, lick the salt actually off the lamp, or the rock itself, and that very quickly, I think it affects their kidneys, but it is potentially lethal.
Oh gosh. So
in high doses, I mean, if they had the odd lick or two, I'm sure it wouldn't be a problem, but they get quite addicted to it, so I've been told.
And if you were using it as a treatment, which would be maybe a regular thing, even for periods of time, and you were having sleep with you, or you're in in your bedroom or whatever, or their bedroom.
Their bedroom. My bedroom, their bedroom.
It's really good to be made aware of these things, because we can't know everything. So I have to thank Mick from up there in Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire area for raising that issue. And I did actually ring Penny, and I hope she's going to join us in a little while, about this issue. And she actually also didn't know about that, although she also has.
Right.
So, but she said, well, look, sea salt, any good quality sea salt, because what we're all after, it's the minerals, because for a long, long time, I've always said that we are not so much, though that may have changed in recent years, vitamin deficient, much more we are mineral deficient, and that certainly has been true for a long time, though now we may be also a little bit more on the vitamin deficiency side as well. Anyway, so that was her take on it, and so until she comes on and perhaps has any more thoughts about that, we'll suggest maybe looking at just that combination of very good quality sea salt. Again, let's see if we get any comments back about how cats fare with that. But when we were talking about just that, Pat, even earlier on today, you also mentioned about essential oils, and I think that's just worth mentioning as we're talking about kitties and their wellness, about their possible susceptibility to us using essential oils around them.
Yeah, again, this is, I say it's hearsay, but I have researched it quite a lot, and I am very careful with my own animals now. And I did actually have a friend of mine who was having trouble sleeping and was using lavender oil quite a lot. And her cat wouldn't wake up for 24 hours.
Oh.
He was asleep on the end of the bed and he just didn't wake up. And then when he did, so it obviously had quite an effect on him. Not her, sadly, because I don't think she did sleep that well.
Blooming cat.
But on a more serious note, yes, I think if you're burning any essential oils, I mean, you might want to check with a specialist. I think some are more potent to others, but cats in particular, and again, check with your vet, but cats in particular seem to have a susceptibility to things that we may use. I mean, you know, the old one of going into the garage and you know, and dogs are drawn to the de-icer, you know, things like that, you know, they're drawn to it. So it's just worth it, worth checking if you're used to running meditation groups or whatever, you know, that you're not overdoing it. I mean, I'm sure a small amount over a period of 15 minutes, half an hour wouldn't be a problem. But if you're in a group, you know, or you're holding a course and you're burning something all day, apart from the effect it might have on us as well as humans. But if it does that to us, our bodies are much bigger, aren't they, than our animals. So for some reason, cats are more sensitive, and I think it affects their kidneys quite quickly, or can do.
Yeah.
So some people say that their animals are either comatose or have tremors or whatever. Yeah. So it can become, in some cases, a very serious condition which needs immediate veterinary care, like urgent veterinary care.
Oh, right. So all that's worth knowing. And Pat, whilst we're speaking about animals and cats, I think because somebody also asked me, you know, which one of you, either Penny or Pat, was the animal communicator lady, and I thought this would be a great opportunity, slightly veering off the health orientation at the moment, but for you to just give us a little overview of, you know, what got you interested in animal communication. And I do know, of course, that you ran a cattery, so perhaps you could give us some insights into that, because I know also you had concerns about how people, you know, carry animals as well, you know, in the containers.
Yeah, transportation. I mean, that was one of the things that was really highlighted to me when I had the cattery and rescue centre, because I saw, obviously, over a period of 8-9 years, literally hundreds and hundreds of cats arrive. And so they would arrive in their little baskets. And 9 times out of 10, and this is something I actually learnt myself when I was at Cats Protection, because we used to try and do a bit of an educational program, particularly for people who had never had a cat before. So if we were rehoming with somebody who'd never had a cat, we used to do a little like a mini thing so they could take away the basics of cat care. Well, one of the issues that I noticed, and particularly when I had my own cattery and rescue, was because I had more time to devote to clients coming in, was that the majority of cats that came in were in baskets that were far too small for them. And what tends to happen is, particularly if they buy a cat or have a cat come to them when they're young, they're quite tiny. I mean, even when they're up to 6 months or 9 months, they're quite slim and they're quite flexible. But, you know, as they grow older to 3 and 4, they start putting on weight, and usually the carrier that might have first been used is not really suitable. But people don't realise, you know, 2 years down the line, they get the carrier at the garage, stuff the cat in it. So I was faced with quite a lot of cats that were actually quite stressed because they were in a space that was too contained for them. And the rule of thumb is that the cat has to be able to walk in to the carrier easily. They don't like walking into them, but they have to be able to walk in, stand up and turn around and sit, so that they're not crouched and they haven't got the ceiling of the carrier here and here. And the other thing that people need to check on.
So we're just losing your connectivity a little bit there.
Get the right size, but also be aware that, is that me? I'll just check mine.
That's all right, yeah. It was just freezing up a little bit there.
Yeah. Well, yes, I'll just reset my internet. The clasps are, sometimes they're made of plastic. You need to make sure they're firmly anchored in. And that the cat has enough air, because some people cover it with blankets, because the cat might be frightened. But you need to get the air, which mostly comes from the front and the side. So they're only small things, but how I got into, and that's one of the things I noticed with people, but the other thing that I did notice, perhaps more than anything apart from that practical issues and talking about feeding and things like that, was the disconnect between, emotional disconnect between them and their animal. And it wasn't that they were being unkind or not wanting to learn, but they just didn't have a sense of where their animal was, having been stuffed into a box and brought to a cattery, and which is stressful for a cat because they don't like majority of them don't like travelling, as I said, Siamese or Burmese, and then they don't seem to care too much. But so that was the first thing. And I remember talking to clients about their cats, and I could read a cat as soon as it came in and they plonked it on the reception thing, and I looked at it and I could read it immediately, and I would say something like, "Are you aware that Timmy's not too happy?" And they said, "Well, he's just been in the car." And I said, "But I had a sense of something." And sometimes they just said, "Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm sure he'll be fine. I'm sure he'll settle in." So some of them didn't care very much, if I'm frank, but others did, but just didn't understand.
Yeah.
Didn't have that emotional level of being able to look.
How would you deal with that, Pat? When I've had animals that have been in a state of great stress or distress, I've used rescue remedy, watered down slightly. I'm talking about the tincture, the Dr. Bach flower essence, which is a combination of 5 remedies specifically for shock and trauma, which I've had used to great effect on wild animals and my own.
Yeah, no, it is brilliant, and you can just put a couple of drops in their water on a daily basis if you're integrating animals, cats, dogs, or cats to cats, or dogs to dogs, or the mix. That's often stressful for them. Or if there's a new person coming into the household, a new partner, all those sort of domestic situations that happen, which affect our animals. Yes, bark remedy is really good, a good standby. It's good for us as well, for stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our animals, if you get stressed by taking your animals to the vet, give yourself a couple of sprays to calm you down, because if you're calm, then your animal will reflect that to you and will feel more calm. If you get worried, they'll get worried.
Yeah.
They're going into a stranger, and most animals don't like the vet. It's a bit like us going to the doctor or in the hospital. So it's the same thing. But a lot of vets now do carry products to help calm the animal. Yeah. And I'm not up to date with many of them, but I happened to see one just mentioned the other day. And that's good too, because there are other products out there, and you can always talk to your vet about that.
Yeah.
There's the plugins, obviously, but there are some that you can. And the other one, which is very good, is available in the UK, is Cbd oil.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is a company that sells Cbd oil, and they do have a pet care range, and there are a lot of those around. So you can do your own.
Is that the CTFO? people that
CTFO do a specific range, but I think there are also others.
Yeah.
I think you have to be careful about dosing them with CBD oil that might be for humans. Because I don't think the taste is great, so they tend to make it more palatable.
Yeah.
So that's a great stress buster as well.
Yeah. So can you then just give us a little overview of how you got into the actual training that you ended up doing?
Yeah, well, when I had the Cattery, I was talking to my partner at that time, my business partner, talking about this issue. And I said, we haven't got time. We were always incredibly busy. And I said, we haven't really got time, but I am going to look into animal communication, because I think perhaps we can help teach them.
Yeah.
Too. We teach ourselves first. And then we can teach them to understand the connection that you can have. And I really didn't know. I mean, instinctively I knew, but I didn't know how to do it. So I had been drawn. I spoke to a lady called Elizabeth Whiter. If anybody wants to look her up online, she is very, very qualified in herbal remedies and a whole lot more, and healing for animals. And I rang her first to just ask and say, what could I do? And she said, well, you need to find a good animal communicator course and go on that. And we had a long chat, and talking to her was great, because she put me on the path. But what actually happens, as it happens in life a lot of the time, is that we were just too busy. It's a 7-day-a-week business, and there were 2.5 of us, and certainly from March to September, we were flat out. So I didn't really have the time or energy to go that route. And then when the Cattery closed, a couple of years later, I decided at that point that I would, as soon as I could, take an animal communication course, which I did in 2011, I think it was, 2010, 2011. And I've been very drawn to a chap called James French, who, if you want to Google him, he has developed a program called the Trust Technique. And the trust technique is basically creating a bond of trust between the human and the animal. And that allows you then to come into a neutral space using your 5 senses to where you can meet the animal's wavelength, the animal's vibration. It's a little bit like doing meditation, but it's actually specifically aimed to get the animal to trust you, to understand you, because you're meeting them on a completely different level than you would in everyday life.
Yeah.
And so I actually did train with James and did his professional animal communication course. And that started my journey on animal communication.
And have you found, because that would have been a few years ago, is that right?
About 2011.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's a little while ago. So have you found then, which is just, as life's changing and the world's changing and the energies are changing within and all of that in between us, have you found there's any change in how readings are done or how the communication develops, between you and...
Well, for me personally, I think the first thing to understand is that one of the first things that you learn is that animals think and feel exactly as we do. They have sentient beings. They have, in fact, I'd say they're more aware of their feelings than we are sometimes, because we tend as humans to shut them down.
Yeah.
Animals don't. Animals, it's like, blah.
Yeah.
As you and I have discussed, when you see a dog out for a walk, it's pure joy. They don't care what's happening. They're just going to go for it. They live in the present moment. humans very rarely live in the present moment.
Yeah.
And so, you know, from that point of view, you have to get to that point first. And when I was initially trained, we were trained, and I understand why it was done, were things like to ask, or, you know, we had a list of questions to ask, because remember, we were in training, so they would say, ask what favourite toy he has, or ask him about a specific event, because we needed almost a test board to make sure that we were on track with the right animal and the right, you know, because of all this work is done distantly via photograph. Right. So it is open to interpretation, it is open to other circumstances. Sometimes people used to send me initially photographs of them with another dog or another cat.
Oh.
You need that in isolation because you've got mixed energies.
Yeah, of course, that makes sense.
So in the early days, I was really working to that structure because I needed to learn my craft.
Yeah.
So I decided that I would take on or try and find 50 profile cases, case studies, and in return for people allowing me to do that, I would give them a written report. And I can say that each communication I have done has always been totally unique. And I was a little bit freaked out when I first started at some of the things they told me, because they started telling me things about their guardian owners, which, you know, I was quite embarrassed to have to pass on in some cases. And as time has progressed, and I now work in a very, very different way, because it has grown to be a very spiritual practice. So I'm tending now to attract people who really want to dive deeper to understand. They think that they want to understand their animals, and that's fine, because that is certainly a big part of it. But what tends to happen is the animal becomes the mirror to reflect back to them what they need to know.
Yeah, and how powerful is that?
You see, they are our witnesses. I mean, we know with dogs, don't we, particularly?
Yeah.
They know when you're going out, they know when you're coming in, they know when they're due for a walk, they know when their tea should be ready. They watch you. I mean, particularly dogs. I mean, my dog I became aware of this pair of eyes, you know. Oh, you've just gone to the loo, you put your lipstick on. Oh, walkies, you know. They know every movement, but cats do too, and most animals do. They are your witness. They are the silent witness in your room.
Yeah. And I believe you also had a case which, and I think this is unusual, and not to break any confidentiality or anything, but it's where the animal actually reflected back an entire family historical kind of set of crises, which you didn't know about, and it was reflected back to the owner, and you can just carry on with that little bit of outcome, because we're not telling any names or when that was.
Yeah, it happens a lot. So, you know, you may get a case where I'm just trying to think of that particular one. It was unusual in as much that the person who contacted me, I did on behalf of a member of her family. So I had to check, you know, if it's third party, I always check that everybody's on board with it. Obviously.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And what it did, it was what I call an ancestral link down. So this person, the animal reflected back this person's problems and situations, and then somehow, and I can't remember exactly how, but it linked. I think it was the original person who contacted me said, this actually links to 3 other people in our family, and it's a subject that hasn't been talked about for a long time. And so it became a window for people, for those people to explore their own healing.
And I think, just commenting about that, when people
So,
have
in that sense, it's quite extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to say that when people want animal readings, they often don't realize that the reading is actually in a large part going to be about them as well as their animal. So that is something to take on board.
And also, you see, as we are, as humans, as we are progressing, and as we are, now in a time of mass awakening,
yes,
the whole focus is, and the animals are very much part of our awakening when we invite them into, take part, because they will often play up or create a situation within the home, so they get the person's attention, so they then seek help.
Yeah.
And often when they are, as they say, when they are heard, their sense of relief is enormous, because some of them, particularly animals, assistance animals, carry a huge burden when they are sometimes physically responsible, physically and emotionally responsible. They feel responsible for that person.
Yeah, I don't think people realise what animals take on in that regard. And Penny joined us, so welcome, Penny.
Yes, great.
Yet, but we're just talking about Pat and her experience as an animal communicator. And I think this is really important, because I hadn't realised before talking to Pat in depth about her animal communication that in fact the majority of the readings were all about the person and a little bit about how the animal, fitted in to that life, and how that was working out for them, and what the issues were around that. Penny, we've got your beautiful head. They're just the rest of your little eyes there.
I can only see you, Joanna.
You can't see me? Yeah, I'm here.
I see you, but I can't see anybody else.
Oh, okay. I'm not quite sure why.
I thought it was going to be a Skype and not a Zoom, so that's why I didn't.
I know. I did send you a little email at the last minute, because I thought it would be okay. It's not.
I don't know what to join.
Well, I tell you what, if you want to so you're here with us and we can hear you, and can you hear us all right there?
Yeah, but I can only see you up in the corner as well, a little tiny picture.
Okay. If you look at the upper right hand side, it says speaker view, and then there's a full screen, or says grid view, and you can click on that. It'll give you a slightly different look. But I think your camera on your computer is just tipped a little bit backwards, so we don't see your full face.
Can't see anything apart from a join meeting.
Yeah, well, you have joined. You're here, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to hear or see you. So don't worry about that bit. But look, I tell you what. Whilst you're just trying to see us, I'm just going to let Pat just finish off quickly, because we are just at the end of that little bit of information, and thanks for that, Pat, because I think it's invaluable. And as I said, I hadn't realized that a lot of animal communications generally, of course, it includes the animal and their welfare and well-being, but essentially it's a lot about the household, the owner in particular, and as we've discussed, can already also rather reflect in entire families' structures and the dissonance.
Yeah, and they are very honest, and to the point of being sometimes a bit direct or a bit rude. Yeah.
I don't like it is.
And there is another element which is now just beginning to come through, where I've been aware of this for the last 2 or 3 years, but it's becoming more common now, and I'm attracting clients who are in line with this, but some of them are here to support our soul's mission. They've either reincarnated, because obviously, I can contact pets that have passed on, but I myself have got two cats that have reincarnated with me, and I know it's happening to a lot of other people as well. It's happening more and more, and they have come here with a specific purpose to assist us. And if you like, they've got a little bit of a soul contract with us in the same way that we have soul contracts with people here in our earthly life here.
Yeah. Well, so, I have to say that, and I haven't heard of this before, and I don't know if I've mentioned it here before this point, that I interviewed a lovely gentleman and about his abduction experiences and all the rest of that. And we'll be getting that interview out in the next weeks. But one of the things that he said was that he had a pre-birth experience memory without doing any regression. He just had this memory of seeing all the people that he was going to love, as he said, which I thought was lovely, who were going to be important in his life, and the cats. He didn't mention dogs, it was cats. And I thought, oh, wow, I'd never heard that before. So I thought that was beautiful.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for that, Pat, because that was really valuable. And also, on a last parting note about the homeopathic side of things, my wonderful friend who has long gone now, our homeopath, sorry, I'm just going to click that off. Oh, it's my wrong one. All these things. He used to treat animals homeopathically, and I know that's not always the case with homeopaths these days. In fact, I think it can be quite tricky to find a homeopath who'll treat an animal, but of course there's lots of ways that we can research for ourselves in treating animals, so homeopathically that is. So I don't know whether Chris, Jacob, if you're listening, you have any comment to make about the animal element of that, but be interested to hear from you if you do. So thank you really very much, Pat. That was very, very interesting.
You're welcome.
So, and he was also saying, I had actually a little chat with Chris, just to mention this, that whilst he's a homeopath, he also has had fantastic experience with acupuncture. And when I was talking in episode 2 about the Benedictine helping my migraine, which it surely did, absolutely, I had all kinds of treatments from chiropractic, osteopathy, all kinds of things, including acupuncture, to help what became a real big problem with my back. It was like it was locked out. It was like there were continents of a landmass and nothing could ease them. I mean, it was incredible. And that was also painful. That was a different pain to the migraine. So that was another issue I was having to deal with. And then during a course, which was the Harry Oldfield electrocrystal therapy course, many moons ago now, we were put into pairs to work with one another to test the crystal and the electromagnetic energies coming through, all of that. And the gentleman I was paired up with was actually a dentist and an acupuncturist. Now, at that time, I had also trained in my regression work, which I would now say is far bigger and really is quantum healing, but with a regression strand, if that is relevant for the person. And I say that because when I looked at this person, suddenly, now and again, I'll see what it is that is going on for a person. And I saw this massive hole in the whole of his upper body, as if he'd been blown away with a cannon. And I was quite shocked, because it was quite a sizable wound. And I was obviously seeing this from a past life. And I was quite shocked. And when I said to him, oh my goodness, are you aware of it? Have you got a lot of problems in that area? He wasn't aware of it, but he had a lot of problems in the area. So and I said, well, I've got a lot of problems with my back. And whilst the electrocrystal therapy didn't shift it, it helped in other things. We both decided we'd try each other's therapy to help rebalance our different areas. And I said, I haven't tried, because he said, well, I often work with auricular acupuncture on my patients. I said, fantastic. So auricular being the ear, for anybody who doesn't know that. And so I had a pin in my ear for, I can't remember if it's 7 or 10 days. And I thought that was going to be a bit strange. And I wasn't sure if I was happy with that, because, you just think of maybe infection getting there and all that crazy nonsense of fear. Anyway, it was the most incredible experience, because after a day or two, and then it moved and moved, I began to feel as if tectonic plates of my body, which are my back and my muscle structure, beginning to ease, becoming a bit more malleable, and releasing whatever had been traumatizing them, keeping them in lock with each other. And that was the beginning of my structural healing. So that was amazing. So that was my experience with acupuncture. And when I said to another guy who was a regular acupuncturist I was going to, he laughed when I said I was doing, taking the treatment to try and try and stay in balance. He said, "Oh, haha, what with gamma rays, X-rays, and all these other rays coming in from the cosmos? You don't stand a chance, kid. Just look after yourself and all that." Anyway, that was just very interesting. So, Penny, I was wanting to ask you, just to pick up from what Pat and I had been talking about earlier, about the salty salve and the possible change of Himalayan salt for sea salt. And I know we had a little phone call about that. And would you think that would work as well? You probably haven't tried it because you've been using the Himalayan sea salt.
Yeah, I feel it will do. Yeah, because it's sea salt. The only thing with the Himalayan, it's the sea was more pristine.
Yes.
In case you have Malden or that one from Wales. What's the island? Gosh, it's gone up my head. But because the sea is not as clean now as it was when the millions of years ago, when the Himalaya was thrust, it was seabed at one time. People think it's rock salt. It was rock. Well, the rocks were seabed, like our limestone rocks down here.
Yeah.
And how powerful are they? So that's the only thing. No, sea salt is the cleanse of the Himalaya.
So that was just somebody who had written in about that query, knowing that Himalayan salt was pretty bad for kitties. So anyway, maybe we can suggest that you try that and see how it goes, and let us know what results you have. So so that'll be interesting. And then what Penny has had a lot of experience of, which I think is fascinating, is working with energy fields, dimensional things, ley lines, and that kind of thing. I'm very interested in all that area as well, because I've had occasion to do some energy clearing work. And there was a man years ago called Colin Bloy, I don't know if he started, actually, I want to say he started, but he was certainly part of Fountain, I think it was called Fountain International. And they used to clear what he called the arteries, certainly of the locale. And he was in Brighton at the time. And they used to clear. When I say clear, they used to use like a remote viewing, distant healing of the roadways, the access points into the city or into towns, wherever there were known problems. And he actually did an experiment which involved the police of Brighton, where on a particular occasion, known to the police to be a very troublesome event involving lots of bikers, and nothing wrong with the biker community. It's not that, it's just that it seemed that invariably there were problems because of so many people gathering from time to time. And so Colin and his team did some work on clearing the blocking negative energy of the arteries into Brighton, and the police were astounded. They reported, and it was reported widely, that there was, I can't remember what the drop was. It was massive. It was way more than 20%. It may have even been 40% in any crime figures or disruption. So that just goes to show you, how powerful it can be. But you've had a little bit of experience also of, say, the energy lines, and maybe we could speak, Penny, you could speak to what are energy lines and ley lines, and how they can also hold energy of a good or a negative, impactful nature.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done some, obviously, when I first started dowsing, it was rods, and I think it was Zig Lonergan, who was one of the quite famous dowsers and has written books, did a trip to the Roll Right Stones when I was living in Northampton in Oxfordshire, and we went with him, and the rod dowsing was quite fascinating because there was like a spiral in the middle of this stone circle, which most people picked up. And then I remember mainly then working with the pendulum and working sort of, if you like, remotely, and finding out, we humans have energy lines, very, very important. That's obviously acupuncture works with, and every tooth in our head is connected to a very important meridian, which is the energy line. So is the earth, and we are the earth. And so, as Michael Feely says, our bodies are maps of the universe. So we go out even further, but if we just think of, the planet Earth, it's just amazing the energy and how human consciousness can affect it, and also mainly emotion. It's human emotion really is that affects the energy lines. And they've had what I found out was that the main vortex points and energy line, as you can get a ley line junction, which Kirkhead Tower is, when I can almost see it out the window here. Kirk means church, where I'm living in Grange Upper Sands. It's a 3 ley line junction. And so it's fascinating how I found out that a lot of things have been placed deliberately on energy lines and vortex points that have pushed dark energy into the earth, which is why it's so important we try and clear it, and we can do it. And if you want to think of the things that have been built, you're talking cathedrals, churches, abbeys, mobile phone masts. Honestly, they are honestly put on the energy lines. Even nuclear power stations, anything that's affecting the earth in a negative way. I mean, even Sellafield, it's got stone circles that I didn't even know until a friend of mine, Mark Broach, I'll tell him his name, he's from Inner Earth, very psychic, lots of connections to Venus as well, very, very psychic, took me round all the Ennerdale and all that area up in that area. And Ennerdale Lake is fluoridated, and they've got Sellafield right near, and it's on a huge, got stone circles around. And this is exactly what I've realised has been going on for many, many, many hundreds of years, perhaps even thousands, is to depress the Earth's energy lines with these.
And therefore ours, as we
ours, yeah, you're right.
The face of it, of course.
Because we are the Earth, we are the oceans, and what we think of ourselves affects the Earth. That's why I found out with the dowsing, the unconditional self-love for ourselves ripples out not only for Earth, as you know, the anagram of heart, but also out into the universe. So it's sort of never ending, and it's fascinating. Things I found as well, this is very interesting. Another example of what's not that far from here, and I'm going to now Morecambe, which, Eric Morecambe, which isn't far, but we look at it across the bay, from Grange straight across the bay, we can see Morecambe. And there's, if you go a little bit further out towards past Heysham, where the, again, rock cut graves and also the nuclear energy centre there.
Okay.
There's a place called the hyperbaric oxygen chamber, which is fantastic, really is. And also, used to be called the Primrose Centre, which was absolutely lovely, lots of things going on that was positive. And what I picked up was the dark energy from the nuclear power station and so on, pushing energy into the earth, was smaller, was less than the positive energy from the hyperbaric oxygen and also the Primrose Centre. And that has happened quite a few times, and that really was my bit of an awakening quite a few years ago now, in how more powerful the light energy is.
So how did it become stronger? I'm just trying to think. So what were you healing it? Were you doing some activity there?
I was just really researching and finding things out, basically learning, although I've got a fair amount of books on earth energy lines, and also the favourite one was when trying to think of the dowsers now, but they did the Michael and Mary line all the way through from Land's End, I think, all the way through to the Wash, and every church was on that spiral of energy line was called St. Michael or St. Mary. And I was quite fascinated by it all. And mainly I was doing this, now I've been doing quite a lot of clearing myself. But at that time, going back only a few years, I'd no idea how powerful we are as humans. And it doesn't have to be, we don't have to be special at all, because, we can do that. We can actually help clear these
so
energies.
if somebody said to you, oh, Penny, maybe there's a ley line where I live or where I am, do you have any information for them, any sort of techniques that you would recommend for them to try and clear or support their and the earth energy?
Well, yeah, it's quite easy, really. I mean, you don't have to move out your house, but if you do want to, go and sit somewhere near or even within that energy line. Very often cats will sit on these energy lines. They're very, very sensitive. As you know, my two tabby cats that we had some years ago, sisters, were always at the bottom of the garden here, where this Kirkhead Tower that splits the energy line that comes over from Hesham to 3, comes right to the bottom of our garden, connects up with the church in Alithwaite, which sends it then up the Cartmel Valley, which is the Cartmel Priory and Field Broughton Church, with huge spire. This is a giveaway as well. How tall is the spire? How much energy that they want to... Well, my cats used to always sit down on that area. And I'd probably say that it's to go down and do some humming from the heart chakra, humming from which resonates with the heart, which is, you can feel it, and just good intent, and perhaps using the breath and then say what you want to happen.
Yeah.
Or think it. It doesn't have to be said out loud. It's just think.
Yeah.
And then, with the breaths, just send that energy out there, and it will have a lot of good effect. It really will.
I know that I was doing some work with a friend up in Scotland, and they're not a million miles from a place called Elgin, same name as Elgin.
Oh, marbles.
Yeah, and the church and the ley lines coming from it in Elgin were very, very dark. When I say dark, I mean energetically. I mean, it felt very heavy energy, quite malevolent. Things happened to people that weren't great. There was a lady that he used to frequent, a health shop. She was always ill. The shop wasn't doing well, and it was right in the middle of this energy line, and the line continued, and it was really, really not great. And so we did some work together on clearing it. And what I did, just in case anybody is interested to do this, because you don't have to go and announce it, you can just do it yourself and quietly in your room or when you're out in the car even. And I kind of focused in on the name. I haven't been to Elgin, so I didn't have a visual. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't go and research it, but I just, with connecting with my friend's energy, I linked in with the church. I could see this huge darkness, and it was just to me, it was presenting like a cloud. And if something's there, I kind of will see it with my inner vision, and I trust what I see because it's been a very good guide for me. And then I followed it, and it was like this dark roadway. And anyway, we worked on clearing it, and all I was doing was opening up a light, if you like, and you can imagine like bringing the sunlight in. Just imagine the dark cloud, suddenly the clouds part, and there's the sun, and it just rippled through that entire segment, and on and on and on, because it would have then, I would have intended that carried on for infinity, out and out and out as well. And then so some time passed, and I spoke to my friend again. I said, oh, by the way, that work we did, how is your friend in her shop? And this might have even been a couple of months or so later. He said all her ill health had gone, all of it, and her shop was doing better, and she was in great spirits. Because it's like sometimes, I don't know about you, Penny, or Pat, I've had experience where it's people who are really working for to bring a higher quality of life and light and energy and resonance into their field are often tripped up or targeted in some way or another, through fear-induced things or who knows what. and it can, attract some pretty awful health conditions or situations which are not theirs. They've been visited upon them by, whatever other entities, let's call them, of those other controlling forces. And I don't know if they're intelligent, rather than maybe they are triggered into activity just by, let's say they reach a certain criteria and suddenly it triggers these other, like robotic energies to switch on and target people. And I've had that myself, indeed, and I have cleared them with my various techniques. And and I asked, interestingly enough, because I think I did the Elgin clearing a year or two back, and I even asked just recently about how that was still, and he says that Elgin's still a bit of a dark place, but she's still doing well and no health problems again. And I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant to listen to you, John. You have to write your little book or do.
Yeah. I tell you another thing that people can do if they fancy it. I mean, this is just, something, I'm all for something pretty quick and simple, because I don't have time to, my brain just doesn't have space anymore for a lot of stuff. But sometimes when I'm in my car, what I do is I imagine that I'm in a light plow, like a snow plow clearer. A snow clearer, but actually it's a light bringer, and there is my massive, huge, what do they call that thingy at the front that's going to shovel my snow shovel, my light shovel, and I intend, when I get conscious enough, that my light shovel goes across all the lanes, and as I'm driving past whoever and everybody in their vehicles, that the light will touch their lives, touch their health and wellness, and that it will carry on through their lineage. And I don't do it every day, but I do it from time to time. And that's just a very easy, lovely, quick thing to do. And you may have your own visualization that make it more potent for you. But, something like that, it makes a difference.
What I do mainly is I'm using the colours, the pink and gold, which is the change of the colours in the heart energy field, instead of green and turquoise, which is the heart chakra, and then the second heart chakra. It's pink and gold, which is the magenta pixie confirmation with the book, the black box program, and the rose gold, what's it? No, it's antidotes. I forget the name, but it's so fascinating to, as you're doing with your imagining that you're in a big, clearing. Yeah, the big. And if you can bring in the pink and gold as well, it's very, very powerful colours.
Okay. I don't know about the black box that you mentioned, and it may be, Penny, if you are at the end of time too, if we don't carry on, then we'll just click back in and we'll do that as well.
But that's channeling the collective consciousness of 9, the white-winged collective consciousness, an ET group of ETs that have been channeling through magenta for quite a while now.
Oh,
and that
okay.
little book, it's only small because she had a transmission from them that was so important, because of the questions she was asking, which apply even more now with what's going on with the, I hardly dare say the word, I call it not lockdown, the lower density distraction.
LDD, yes, I think that is the low density distraction of the powers that would like to be, and they think they're going to stay. No, you're not.
It's even more important, to know that, and to use these colours, because colours, funny enough, quite a few years ago, before I came up here, I was interested in colour, obviously been teaching art, and I used to look at because do you remember this little phrase that we were taught years ago? Blue and green should never be seen.
No, I don't know why is that?
Oh, that's this is the opposite, you see. And then I looked at everything, because I love being out in nature, and there were some nice places where I used to live in Northampton. And I thought, green, that's the fields, that's the colour of nature, that's heart, and blue sky, throat.
Oh, yes, of course.
Pictures telling us, stories of that lovely love for us, which we are all her children, the whole of Mother Earth, aren't we? And I thought, that's interesting, So this blue and green, like the number 13. 13's unlucky. It's not. You see, we've been told opposites. Total opposites.
Well, that's true. And I'm really glad. Not that I believe it is, because I live at a 13 and my car plate has a 13 in it, and
Good. It's a good number.
it seems to come around me a lot. So all
The other
good
thing
for me.
I'm going to say, John, is what I picked up as well, the geopathic stress. That's something that we used to
Oh
say
yeah.
is, and I need to do some homework on it, but it may be that the water that, you know, a lot of these religious buildings are built on spring lines and water, you know, holy wells and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it could be that the water is so affected by the, you know, even some of the hymns that are sung, you know, don't get me started. It is a shame. Things are changing. Things are changing.
Yeah.
But it often affects the water. Water goes, you know, with 70% water, the earth is, and that could then affect, I know the houses and buildings that have got geopathic stress, it can link with underground water. And that can be changed again with the power of the emotions and the...
Yeah, and of course we know that water has memory.
Of course.
Because is it
Masaru
Emoto? I'm losing the name slightly now. So yeah, he showed that actually, and in fact I'll leave a link to his book later on.
Which book is that?
I forget what it's called. I have it. Masaru Emoto. It's like the emotion of water, and he was showing crystals. They showed it in oh my lord, a film ages ago. Down the Rabbit Hole, was it called? I can't remember what it's called, but it was basically showing a droplet of water which had the intention of gratitude aimed at it, and then another one with hate, and another one with and honest to goodness, all these different ranges of emotions, and the ones of love and gratitude were so stunning as pieces of art. Oh my goodness. And it doesn't really matter whether, you know, it was only 10% of the time that they were able to be photographed or not, but the difference in the crystal shape and the beauty of it compared to the hate, which was like a horrible greeny sludge, it is astonishing. So, you know, if people do nothing else, then just check out Masaru Emoto's book and images. You can Google, you know, all of that. I'll try and find out that book name and put, I didn't know we were going to go talking about that, but put it in the link below as well, because it's absolutely fascinating, and it shows you in material form. It's evidence of how thought changes our structures, and it will change us, because as you said, we're 70% water. So if we just beam the gratitude for our lives, no matter how difficult a time we're having, and just see the lesson or the lovingness in it, or the opportunity for whatever growth is going to come out of that, you know, it's not always easy to do that. I know that, we all know that, but you know, if you can find a way to do that, it makes a big difference. And I just think that's very, very valuable information, and there's a lot of work being done on the memory of water. And I know, I don't know if it was Sixto Paz Wells' group, the Rama Mission Group in Peru. If it wasn't them, it was somebody linked with them who reported a highly polluted lake somewhere in the South Americas, and the group spent a long time just working to heal that, and they tested the water as well, and it cleared it. I mean, how amazing is that?
Absolutely.
So, you know,
taught in schools, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Got about 8 minutes left.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Pat. I did see that.
That's right. It's the infinity on the side.
Yeah. So I just thought that was fascinating about all of that, and just again, it's a reminder for myself, because we often get a little bit busy and forget just to take a breath and just to remember that we do have this deep impact, you know, on our own lives by our pattern of thoughts, you know, and the same with the geometry. All of that is reflected, and when you see it presented in picture form, you think, oh my goodness. And I think what, Penny, that I would love you to mention before, as we sort of count down for the last 5 or 6 minutes or so of this chat, is I wanted to ask you an update about Keshe, because I kind of lost sight of that, and just, can you give a little overview of who he is? I know he's an Iranian scientist, and his work is incredible.
Absolutely brilliant. And I think I said last time that when I doused, he got 50% of Nikola Tesla's soul that's walked in. I don't think he knows that, because I haven't actually been in touch with him, but I do know a couple of the plasma engineers that worked for him. One really good friend, John Kane, who has been involved in the meetings. They have these Zoom meetings, because there's only 3 plasma engineers in the UK that I was actually working for and being paid for by Mayor and Keshe. And they've just said that things have just gone a bit quiet, and that there is a link that you can, which I haven't actually looked at, sorry about this, but there is one, but Keshe has been doing some
it's sort of free energy technology kind of stuff, isn't it?
But it's linked with this virus thing, this horrible thing.
Oh, okay, as well.
About. Yeah. So I really do need to update myself on that. But as regards the energy, I don't. It's nothing that Keshe has been doing is going to go away, but it's just obviously biding the right time for more development. And what we've already done with the McGrath units, and which is what they've created, which is using the gravitational magnetic energy of the Earth to create electricity that goes on forever, literally.
Just like Tesla did.
Yeah, you don't pay for it. Now, I've had one of these units. Yeah, I've seen them, but a little bit.
And you had to, didn't Meron, is it Meron Keshe?
Meron, Mehran, yeah, Meron.
Yeah, Meron Keshe. Didn't he have to leave, was it the States he was in, to go and carry on developing his unique slide of work?
Now, but he did have death threats about 4 or 5 years ago, because I remember going especially to, it's a big trip for me, because I was leaving my cats to be fed, to go to LA for a 5D conference, which is run by David Farman, who's another Iranian guy, I think, because Mayor and Keshe is Iranian, nuclear scientist, Iran, very clever people there. And Laura Eisenhower was there, with some amazing speakers, and Mayor and Keshe was supposed to be Skyped. They couldn't get him because of death threats, and he had to be in hiding, and his family had been targeted, but not now. And obviously Keshe is one of the people I've sort of brought up, or I mean we, the big we, to send the heart energy, the big blast of heart energy to help him protect himself, which is the bubble of protection that we...
Well, maybe that's something that we can invite people who see this to do, is to send that blast of heart energy, like a lovely opening the door of a furnace, to all those, including ourselves, that we feel could do with an extra helping hand and energetic uplift.
It's very, very important,
Yeah.
But as soon as I find out some more, in fact, I've got a Zoom meeting on Thursday evening with it's called the Connecting Consciousness group, which is linked with Simon, Simon Parks, and John Kane, who used to work with Keshe. Is an area coordinator, so he'll be there, and I'll definitely ask about that, because it's consciousness that affects the planet. It's which is what the dark beings, as Magenta Pixie calls the black box program, have been desperate to shut down and to destroy if they can.
Oh yeah.
Because of, obviously, it's pineal and pituitary gland, which creates this amazing, this uplift of consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's been their targets, especially the pituitary gland.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
knowledge is power. People used to say to me, Joe, with a laugh, "Well, aren't you worried about all these things?" I said, "Well, I didn't know what was going on." I didn't know what was going on. Yeah, I was, but no, I know now, because the world is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely. Especially now, but it is. Knowledge is power, and as you say, it's an opportunity. No matter what happens. Yeah. Looking back, the most difficult, most traumatic times that I've had, and we've all been through quite a lot of, I think we say for all of us,
Yeah, we have.
Has been the biggest learning opportunities.
Yeah,
the biggest.
Absolutely. Well, look, ladies, I would just like to finish on just maybe ask just for a few moments in silence. I'm not saying switch off anything or we have to close our eyes, but just take a couple of moments in silence. And how about from this little show, we intend a beautiful, Penny, you think it should be pink and gold?
Pink and gold, yeah. Oh,
Pink
absolutely.
and gold. So let's send a beautiful pink and gold ball of light or sphere of light somewhere into our sphere here and out into the universe or wherever you feel you need it. So let's do that just for a moment. Lovely, just holding that space, because you don't even need to do this for very long. It can literally be seconds, but that intent of pure altruistic love for self coming through the ethers for everybody that we are a reflection of too. So I want to say thank you very much, Pat, for your very, very interesting animal communication background and info.